So welcome everyone. Welcome to the Fashion Means Business Fashion Talks. This week we're going to focus on circularity in fashion. So the New Cotton Project is the world first in the fashion industry. 12 players in the fashion and textile industries have been investigating the feasibility of an entirely circular model for commercial garment production. The Ellen MacArthur Foundation estimates that the equivalent of one rubbish truck of textiles goes into landfill or is burned every second. Fashion industry produces nearly twice as many clothes today as it did 20 years ago. The industry doesn't change, and it's predicted that by 2050, fashion will use up a quarter of the world's carbon budget. The New Cotton Project is an EU-funded project proving that circular fashion can be a reality. A year ago, we met with some of the key stakeholders from the project who revealed some of the progress they've made in its early stages. Today, we are joined by Kirsi Niinimaki, Paula Sarsama, and Traci Kinden, who have kindly given up their evening to give us an update on the project in its second year. Thank you very much for joining us. I am Hannah Middleton, Knowledge Exchange Lead at London College of Fashion, who will be chairing the talk. The panel discussion will run for about 45 minutes, and there will be time for questions at the end. So welcome, Kirsi, Paula, and Traci. Perhaps it would be nice for the benefit of our listeners for each of you to introduce yourself. So I'm going to ask if Kirsi, you could introduce yourself, please, first.
Thank you. Nice to be involved in this discussion. So my name is Kirsi Niinimaki. I'm a professor in design, especially fashion research is my area, and I'm coming from Aalto University, Finland. And in university, I'm running a research group, which is called Fashion Textile Futures, and sustainability is really core of all our research work that we are doing.
Great, thank you very much. Paula, please could you introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Hannah. I'm glad to be here tonight. I'm Paula Sarsama from the Infinited Fiber Company. We are a technology startup company from Finland, and we are working with the chemical recycling technology, which is kind of the technological core of the New Cotton Project, which we'll tell you more about tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I'm loving your backdrop. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Traci, please could you introduce yourself?
Hello, thank you as well for having me. My name is Traci Kinden. I have been focused for the last 10 years on textile waste and recycling and the circular aspects of that topic. And within the New Cotton Project, I'm working together with Infinited Fiber and our partners not on the line tonight, Frank House, to document or estimate the potentially available recycling feedstock from post-consumer sources, and then document the feedstock preparation, pre-processing steps and challenges and developments in the project.
Great, thank you very much. So before we start our discussion, to set the context, there's a short film we're going to show that gives a brief insight into what actually is the New Cotton Project. So hopefully, if technology allows us, we'll be able to see a short film.
Imagine a world where waste isn't wasted, where the fashion you buy, wear, and eventually dispose of is reused in a fully circular fashion industry. Today, our reality looks quite different. Most of our garments currently end up in a landfill or get incinerated. Only 1% enters closed-loop recycling. And in the next 10 years, it is predicted that we will consume 63% more garments than today. So we urgently need solutions. To recycle high-quality fabrics from old garments, to reduce our waste, and reduce pressure on our Earth's precious resources. The New Cotton Project demonstrates a scalable solution for the future. 12 pioneering partners combine a collaborative circular ecosystem with innovative technology. Here they demonstrate a circular model for commercial garment production, ready to empower the industry towards a circular future. Frankenhaus collects and organizes suitable cotton-rich textile waste for processing. Zunk uses technology developed by Infinited Fiber Company to clean the feedstock and rid it of non-cellulosic materials like polyester. Infinited Fiber Company regenerates the remaining cellulose into Infina, a unique new textile fiber that looks and feels soft and natural like cotton. Manufacturers Innovafil, Textina and Kipas use the regenerated fibers to produce yarns, woven fabrics and denim. Revolve Waste, Rise and Aalto University will collect and provide data and conduct research and analysis to share with the industry. Fashion for Good will communicate key milestones and learnings to the industry. Adidas and H&M will design and manufacture clothing made from the reborn cotton, releasing capsule collections in 2022. To learn more, follow our journey on our website and social media channels.
Perhaps we could set the context by Paula and Kirsi sharing your kind of summary of what actually is a New Cotton project.
Okay, so should I start?
Yes, please, Paula.
Yeah, okay. So our whole company is kind of based on the idea of creating change for the textile industry. So this is our only product line we have, and this is our mission to solve the problem of discarded textiles. And currently, only under 1% of all textiles worldwide are recycled into new textiles. And as we heard earlier, there's an urgent need to reduce the pressure on Earth's resources. The EU has also revealed its intention to drive adoption of the circular economy within the textile sector. And this includes plans to increase textile waste collection, sorting, reuse, and recycling by 2025. And 2025 is quite close by, and we also see that we have to look further from the collection, sorting, and figure out what to do with this waste. But even though we have the technology to recycle cellulose-rich textiles, so that means basically cotton-rich textiles having a minimum of 88% cotton, we can transform those back into fibers through chemical recycling. It's called a cellulose carbamation process. But we can't do this alone. So we have the technology, but in order to create real circularity, you have to have an ecosystem and the right sort of open network of companions working on this together. And this is where the New Cotton project comes in. So in our project, we've gathered a team of 12 different players, and together we're trying to really prove that true circularity is possible even on commercial level. And what's been really interesting here is that we have actually been able to prove that already, and launched our first garments on the market last year. And basically, since I'm not sharing any slides here, I'm trying to sort of simplify the story, but it means that if we have the ecosystem there, it means that we have to have every player on board, starting from the collection, sorting of textile waste. Then the waste comes to us, where we actually goes first to the Xamk University, and they do the pre-processing for us. Then it comes to us. We recycle into new fibers. From there, it goes to Innovafil or Kipas for yarn making, and then from there to fabric makers, Kipas or Textina. And after that, we have the brands jump in. So we've had Adidas and H&M playing part of the brands in this project, and they brought these commercial collections onto the market last fall. And in addition to these players, we have also supporting partners who supply us with important data, such as Traci's company here, Revolve Waste. Aalto University has been doing an excellent job with work on business models and ecosystems. And then we also have RISE from Sweden, which is working with the LCA. So in a nutshell, that's our team, and that's what we're trying to solve. Maybe Kirsi, do you have something to add here?
Yeah, I think, Paula, you summarized that really nicely. Perhaps something to add. So one of course, the aim in the new cotton is to provide new knowledge. What happens when we are moving from this linear system towards circular ones, and this textile circularity, for example, it looks so nice on paper. But what happens when you begin to scale up in industrial scale, and you face a lot of problems that it's hard to imagine if you are just doing this kind of like a academic studies, for example. So in that sense, this is also one way to also try to prove that this is possible, but also trying to solve the many problems that actually comes when we talk about circular economy and textiles. So it's not so easy than what we think. And of course, it's totally for Paula's case and Infinite Fiber Company that you are really beginning to scale up some innovation from the laboratory scale to industrial scale. So that's also a really big challenge, actually, what kind of things you face when this is happening. But I think that this is also one way to prove that, well, you need new knowledges and new partners in the ecosystem. It's really important that also the information from the textile waste collectors and sorters are brought back to design practices with the companies. So that's really important part of the ecosystem building.
I think it's, Paula, thank you very much for your in-depth explanation. But Kirsi, you know, at London College of Fashion, we talk very openly about, you know, we show images of the circular versus the linear system. And, you know, I think students kind of go, right, okay, that looks simple. Let's, like, you know, instead of putting it into the grave, let's carry it on around and put it into something else. But as you said, the technology is there, but very much at lab stage. And, you know, I think it's incredible that you've managed to scale up this knowledge and this kind of innovation, and are actually proving that circularity is a possibility, because I would say really until now it's been a bit more of a theory rather than an actual reality. Traci, I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
I don't know that I can add much of value to this particular question. My colleagues have hit it all quite well. So anything I have, I'll sprinkle in along the way.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the project is now sort of 2/3 of the way through. Adidas and H&M have produced a collection from the finished fibers. What has been achieved, or what have you learned so far? If I could ask you, Paula.
Yeah, so I think we've learned a lot of things. Of course, in this type of EU project, it's supposed to be demanding, and there are always like risks involved, because there would really be no point in the EU funding research projects with no risk that were kind of easy to run through. So we've had, of course, technical challenges with some of the processing equipment, especially scaling up. You can have a piece of equipment that works beautifully at lab scale, but then when you increase the scaling up, then you come up with unexpected problems. So we've had some of those, but they've been solved, which we're really happy about. Still some new technical challenges, sort of things to think about, keep on popping up, but that's just engineering as it is. It's kind of part of the game. I think one of the big lessons for us has been, as Kirsi said, you know, identifying the bottlenecks in the circular ecosystem. That what do we need to solve? What are the risks for this? And really being able to tackle those before we go into real industrial scale. So this project has been done at what we call a pilot scale. So we've been producing like 1,000, 2,000 tons of fibers, and that's kind of pilot scale. But our company is scaling up, and our first industrial level factory should start 2026 in northern Finland. And for that, we need all this very important information on how this will really work. Like, for example, how do we find enough raw materials? How do we find the right raw materials that will work for this? And these are things that may work on paper, but when you really start thinking about them, then there might be challenges coming up. I think Traci might mention those later on. But I think one of the nice things that we've learned here is that this project has been like exceptional from a point of view that I've been working with EU projects since 1999, so for a long time. And I think this is the first EU project where I really see the companies are really driving this forward, and they're not just sort of there for the ride to learn something new, but it's really being driven by industry, and there's like everybody's so enthusiastic and been working really hard on this, and we actually succeeded in bringing this to the market. And it's bringing this culture of openness, because in order for the circular ecosystem to work, we have to find a culture where we openly learn from each other and solve the problems together, because we all have different areas of substance that we understand, but we need to understand each other in the ecosystem, because there are things that one person says something from our point of view could mean something completely other to the other party, or we just don't understand each other's challenges. And I think that's something that we've learned on the way, and it's been really sort of exciting to notice that we can solve challenges together.
I think, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you are a group of academics, scientists, retailers, garment manufacturers. So, it's a real mix of individuals with different kind of priorities, I suppose. And I suppose just hearing you talk then, what's speaking volumes is that collaboration is absolutely crucial. And we don't often see collaboration to perhaps this kind of level. So, yeah, I think, as you say, just working together has meant that you have successfully got to where you've got. And you alluded to a few challenges. I suppose what would be interesting for us is each of you could perhaps share any challenges you faced with this project.
Sure, I will hop in with that one if you like. I think I'm usually the bringer of doom, so no. One of the comments that came up for me as Paula was just speaking through her last bit was in addressing some of the challenges that we've had. It's been really interesting to watch, for example, the knowledge that has been growing on the feedstock pre-processing partners side. They've been doing a lot of work there, and especially in the early days of the project, watch the lessons learned and the knowledge share happen between Infinited Fiber and our feedstock preprocessor. That's been a really good, I think, learning experience on both sides, and that's one of the very practical ways the collaboration has happened and really understanding challenges has happened. So in terms of specific challenges, I think one of the things that we know to some degree at least is that while there have been a lot of really interesting reports and estimations on, for example, how much textile is recyclable in the post-consumer stream, how much post-consumer textile waste exists in Europe, how much of that might be recyclable, the economics and the technical aspects of making that happen, to expand a bit on the previous comments, are tricky. And the economics are something that really need to be addressed from multiple angles. So there isn't one solution to that to that challenging problem. It's not just EPR, it's things like design for cyclability and recyclability and new business models, and increasing the capabilities of technologies to handle a broader range of inputs, managing logistics and transport distances better, really, shrinking those down, improving the collection infrastructure. A long list of stuff for one challenge, which is, can we actually collect, sort, and deliver post-consumer textiles in the perfect format for a cotton-rich recycling technology? That's something that still needs some work, and I think there's recognition across the EU on that topic. It's certainly something we've paid close attention to in the project. There's also, in general, with sorting and that feedstock preparation piece, sorting technologies really need to become more accurate, and the sorting process has to cost less. So this is one, as we look forward in the textile-to-textile recycling space, one of the important pieces of supporting infrastructure in that the circular textile supply chain is sorting technology and the application of that sorting technology. And generally the infrastructure is something that needs more attention. I mentioned before improvements in collection and sorting, but I'm also a big believer in local level reuse and engaging citizens, because in that way we can start to bring materials into collection systems that are clean and dry and appropriate for reuse and recycling. And these are little things connected across the big system that help solve some of the challenges around just sourcing input materials at the right price and the right specification for a technology like infinite fiber.
So actually, just I suppose as a bit of a recap, in the last webinar that we did a year ago, you stressed the importance of fabrics being of 100% of a single fiber. Perhaps you could just sort of explain to the listeners, when you come to sorting, what sort of fabrics are you looking for that are appropriate for the cotton project?
Paula, do you want me to take that, or do you?
Yes, please. Yeah, sorry, that's just to carry on, Tracy, from what you were saying.
Okay.
Well, Paula, hop in, Paula, if I misstep or misspeak. But Paula mentioned previously they look for, I think it was 88% cotton was the figure, your current figure, right? So that's a sort of a minimum threshold. So the more contamination or non-cotton fibers that get mixed in, the more difficult it is for Infinited to recycle it, whether that's from a technical perspective or simple economics. It's similar to if you're a cut and sew facility and you have a bad marker yield, your marker yield 60%. That's a bad marker yield. So if you're recycling technology and you're processing cotton fiber or cellulosic fiber, you want that percentage to be high. So the more you blend into it, the worse, even just from a loss perspective, the worse that looks. So less being able to process more of your material that you source as a feedstock is really one of the big drivers for not wanting a lot of blended materials, but it's also just less technical problems. So in a concrete example, a lot of denim today is about 80 to 85% cotton, and the rest is a balance of polyester, viscose, and elastane, depending on who's making it and what they choose. So on the surface, denim appears to be a really nice material. It's cotton, etc. But in reality, it's still got a lot of contamination in it. So minimizing those extra contaminants when it's not imperative for the performance of a product is important. Am I answering your question, or am I speaking?
Yeah. I mean, I suppose I just wanted you to elaborate and sort of stress the challenges that are faced with the actual sort of sourcing and selecting what is usable and what's not usable.
I I think a practical thing to keep in mind, especially for students on the line, is when you go into, for example, buying roles or working on the sourcing teams in a large brand and retailer, it's very tempting to get cheaper textiles that have multiple fibers blended together because it helps hit price point better. It increases the bottom line for a brand, etc. These are the types of things that, as somebody in the product creation phases of roles within a company, that's something that needs to be pushed back on. Even if it saves 3, 4, 5 cents per garment, it has some pretty severe implications. If you blend polyester with cotton elastane and nylon or something, or viscose, you've created a monster, and it's very hard to take apart. Even if you save 5 cents a garment, it's actually not worth it. And
yes,
there may be EU regulations in the coming few years that actually make it more difficult or more costly to do those sorts of things.
thank you very much, Tracy. Paula, do you want to share with us the key challenges that you faced?
I think we've had like our share of technical problems with the pre-processing phase. Like I mentioned, just moving from lab scale, because until now we had been sourcing our pre-processing from like an external company, but we wanted in this project to develop the pre-processing, the process and the equipment so that we could use these learnings in our own factory. And there's been some challenges, but as I said, in engineering, like process engineering, this is more like a rule that there's always challenges. And I think the big thing is what Tracy mentioned, is like this whole story around the sourcing, and this has to be business for everybody in the circular ecosystem, because otherwise it's just not going to happen. So that's really important to us. About the raw materials, just like a side comment on that yes, exactly as Tracy said, that our process, we can take in with much more contaminants, but it's just not like economically feasible to push that much materials in. And currently, for example, the removed polyester, it's in a format that cannot directly be recycled into, for example, polyester fibers. That's the future. We hope that these different chemically recycled streams can use each other's side streams, but that's just not technically possible at the moment. So I think maybe my message to designers of the future is, as Tracy said, don't make blends if you don't need to. Polyester has its own place on the market, and it's needed somewhere. But the polyester recyclers will also be happy if you don't mix viscose into the polyester or other things. I think as time goes, we will be able to benefit from these other streams, but it's still ways to go. So right now we're at the situation where we need monomaterials, or at least minimum contaminants.
Thank you very much. And Kirsti, do you want to share some of the challenges you may have faced?
Yes, actually, I always think about this development projects, that actually the challenges are those moments that the biggest learnings actually happens, and I think that this is exactly the case with Paula and Trace was already highlighting. So actually, I think that from the design point of view, I think that the designers has really benefited a lot about this kind of insight, which normally you are not able to read. For example, that what in the future, what kind of design guidelines we should construct so that the products are easy to recycle at the end of their lifetime. And I think that this will come. It will be the future's path that actually all the policymakers are pushing really strongly that, well, in the future we have to have products which are easy to recycle, and that's not only the fiber, that also means all the other details in the garments, that they are easy to separate and then put in the effective recycling system. And of course, what Paula was saying, that, well, we are living this kind of a situation or reality currently, but of course technologies are developing all the time, so they also can they are able to handle different kind of blends better in the future. But of course, it would be much easier if the products are designed so that they are easy to recycle at the end. So I think that this is the way that the brands are already working for, that they are really taking this kind of insight and new knowledge account and updating their own design guidelines. And that also means that, well, if you know exactly what's the content of the garments and which kind of recycling pad it is designed for at the end of their life, that might also means that, well, it's more like more valuable even as a waste at the end of the lifetime. Might be that, well, it's monomaterials or 100% of cotton, for example, might be that it's economically also feasible. You can still sell it as a material, even if it's like a waste phase. So that will be the reality. And I think that the biggest learnings actually comes also from this kind of insights and these challenges and bottlenecks what we are experiencing in new cotton.
I suppose the idea that someone's waste is actually of benefit to someone else. So nothing in theory should be waste. We need to facilitate that. So just kind of thinking ahead, what should, in your view, the future for fashion production actually look like? Paula, if I could start with you, please.
Well, first of all, I think we just should consume less. It's very simple, that even though there's technological solutions and we love to come up with new ideas to process materials, I think if we just don't cut down on consumption, there's no way uphill. Then I also really think what our company wants to do is we want to create textiles from existing resources that are already in the system, instead of using, of course, fossil materials or even like we'd rather even leave the trees alone. So because we see that there is this trash right now is just unused. So that's really what we want to see, is that producing high quality textiles regenerated from cotton textile waste, or it can be post-consumer or post-industrial or whatever, but emphasis also on the high quality, that we want these garments to be used for a long time, not like 8 times and thrown out. But we see that that's the future, is that somehow the fashion industry should change into thinking a bit longer cycles.
So buying something and at least wearing it. I mean, there's lots of stories of people buying and not even wearing it. And actually, I sit on the board of a charity, and the amount of donations we get, which have still got the price ticket on, so clearly have never been worn, is actually frightening. So buying product, wearing it, but actually keeping it for the longer term. So therefore, quality product is necessary, quality fabrics, quality construction, so that actually we can have that longevity of use.
Yeah, I think like a good tip is for everybody in the fashion industry to make a little road trip to one of these collecting sorting facilities. That was an eye-opener for me, kind of seeing just one little collecting sorting facility in a little town somewhere and knowing that the world is like full of this stuff. Then you kind of understand it kind of wakes you up at that point.
Well, I know myself how much I put into the recycling bin or take to, the recycling box, clothing or shoes wise, and I actually don't consume too much. So I can imagine a sorting plant looks probably pretty horrific. Maybe that's something we need to organize for our students. Thank you, Paula.
I actually think that's a great idea, by the way, organizing a trip for students. Anybody that is entering I don't call it the fashion industry because fashion is actually created, fast fashion is created part of this problem, and the idea of fashion is created, the idea of needing to be fashionable and changing the way you look by purchasing new things every week or every 2 weeks or something. That's the issue. But it's a very good idea to arrange those visits, because there truly is nothing that leaves a larger impression than walking through a warehouse with bales and bales and bales of material, 2,000-pound bale of materials stacked 10, 12, 15 high throughout an enormous warehouse. In addition to all the material, all the textiles that are flowing through, it leaves an impression. And I've been on some of those trips with students who are studying design, who would, at least at that point in time, decided they were leaving the sector and going to work somewhere else. And then there were students who were quite inspired to do it better. So definitely do that.
Yeah, because we could leave the industry, but the problem is still going to exist. So
it's true. And the thing is, we're not any less fashionable today. If you look at it from an aesthetic point of view, we're not any less fashionable than we were in the 70s or 80s or 90s. I mean, it's all a matter of taste and whatever, but the difference is that we've been told and marketed to that we need more. So it's really become a quantity thing versus an actual style thing. And so that's, I think, to move forward from Paula's point, that's where it really sticks for me, is just starting that shift around, okay, well, what is actually stylish? What makes you cool? What makes you important? Feel good? All of these things. It's not quantity. It's style and substance.
yeah, and actually you can change an outfit. We don't really teach sewing anymore, but actually, we can. I remember when I was at school, everybody would be sort of customizing whatever they were wearing. So, they'd have something and maybe they grow a bit tired of it, but then they would sort of add something onto it or put some paint or dye on it or whatever. There is ways of updating your style without consuming, I suppose, modification. That's something that in society we don't really encourage quite to the same extent as we perhaps did 20, 30 years ago.
Could be. And there's also the reuse is becoming such an interesting and growing part of life as well. So if there is a hunger for something new, it doesn't have to be virgin fiber. It could just be new to you. So yeah, it's something that needs to become part of the business model of more brands and retailers.
Thank you, Traci. Kirsi, challenges you may have faced. Sorry, the future of fashion production.
Yes. Well, I think that I look this a little bit more like systemic point of view. So I'm quite sure that we are going towards a circular economy. There's a push and there's a will so strongly that actually that is the next step. That actually everything has to be based on recycling and appreciating waste and extended the use time of the garments. So circular economy is actually in the next phase in the fashion also. But then I think that what Paula was pointing out that, well, because there's also critics towards the circular economy that we are just focusing on this efficiency aspect, that we are just trying to solve the waste problem quite efficiency way, but then actually the next step should be this kind of sufficiency, that we should actually discuss about the limits of growth and even the degrowth and how much actually we can design and produce and consume. And I think that is already coming into this discussion, that where are the limits, that we are consuming so much, we are producing so much that it's a little bit crazy. So in that sense, we should have some kind of like a systemic understanding and also think about the limits of growth and the earth limits also, that actually this is not quite healthy from the systemic point of view. And I'm quite sure that we will find solutions also for that.
Okay, thank you all very much. So we're 2/3 way through the project. Lots of lessons being learnt, lots of challenges faced. What next for the Cotton Project? Because it would be lovely to get you all to come and speak to us in another year's time to give us further insights into the new Cotton Project. So, what are the next steps? And perhaps I start with you, Kirsi.
Well, of course, there's already like a little bit like continuation for new cotton projects. So there's this T-Rex Textile Recycling Excellence project continuing. So actually there the focus will be not only cotton cellulose, but also polyester polyamide. So that's actually is a quite nice continuation that if you are able to solve also other fibers as well as the blends, so that will be really good information for us. And of course, we will continue the academic work. We are still actually collecting data from New Cotton Project and the partners and the main learnings that actually everyone has got from the project. So we are still doing this academic work and trying to publish some papers out of New Cotton Project.
So watch this space then. Traci, what's next for the New Cotton Project?
Well, for me, the information that we've learned and the gaps in knowledge that we've identified around the flow of materials and potential feedstocks or what continues to be very interesting for me in my own work with Revolve and some of the things that we're affiliated with. So that will certainly be something that we continue forward with. And then the relationships that we've developed throughout the project, we'll see how we can continue to support those partners that we've developed relationships with. And from there, yeah, we'll see. Looking forward to the success of Infinited Fiber and the other partners as well.
Thank you. And Paula.
Yeah, so we still have, or we've actually produced the last fibers this spring for the project, and currently they have been made into yarns and have been received by our fabric maker Textina in Slovenia. And there should be still a couple garments coming out to the market next winter from H&M. So that's one of those important things. So it's like a woven fabric, which we haven't done earlier because we had like knitted garments earlier. So that's one thing that will be definitely interesting to see. And then for us, an important part of this project is the LCA, so the life cycle analysis, which is being worked on by RISE currently, and we really want to get an understanding of what kind of factors sort of influence the LCA. So we're speaking of an environmental LCA, but now also a social LCA, which is like the next step forward from a sort of conventional LCA, and understanding that, which hopefully will then be really incorporated, for example, in our company when we start making, for example, selections on what kind of electricity or what kind of chemicals we're buying, where we're buying them from, who we're buying them from. So it's a very important tool for us, this LCA. So that's going to be interesting. And then one thing that's really important that's still going on, it's actually part of Kirsi's work, is we want to affect policies. So we really want to be able to affect the European Union and increase their understanding of this sector. So we see that there really is like a positive drive in Europe, but we also see that maybe some of the industrial points of view have to be further explained and sort of to maintain like the competitive level of European companies on the global market, and how to do that. That's a challenge.
I would definitely say policy is always a challenge, but perseverance will hopefully get us there. Paula, just on the H&M collection, when it's in store, is it advertised as in collaboration with the New Cotton Project, or, you know, will students or listeners today, when they go into H&M, will it be obvious?
I'm sure they will have, because it's part of the project. They have to sort of disseminate when it is. They are currently working on their sort of this launch program, It will be these particular garments are going to be part of another collection, so they're not going to be like as just completely new cotton collections as were the previous ones, but are going to be parts of other collections. But I'm sure that you'll see that on social media. And we will be definitely, as a project, we will be also communicating that launch.
Great, I look forward to it.
So you can follow us on social media.
Yes, I was going to say, yeah, you're more than welcome to share your social media. Okay, so thank you, Traci, Paula, and Kirsi. We're going to open up the floor now to Q&A. So please, has anyone got any questions? Don't be shy. Please put into the chat. Let's see. Well, I know it takes a little while sometimes for the question box to kick into action. Just whilst we're asking people to respond, I suppose my question to the three of you is, what have you enjoyed most about the New Cotton project? Kirsi.
Well,
Paula, go
on. Okay. Maybe I'll just say that when I came to Infinited Fiber a year and a half ago, and kind of jumped into the coordinator's role, this project had already started. This has been like the lesson of my life of textile circularity. So I had worked as a research scientist previously, working with bio-based materials and understanding sectors and maybe more with plastics recycling. But this has been really like, it's kind of a small model of the business our company is working with, and it's been very, very educational, and as I said earlier, that very inspirational partners and great people to work with.
Great, thank you. Kirsi.
Yes, I think that it has been really pleasure to follow up the really this kind of like a open sharing, because as Paula mentioned previously, so in sometimes in different kind of projects, so there are a lot of work, different partners are doing lot of work, but then they are not openly sharing everything, and of course that prevents this kind of like a co-learning processes. And I think that hasn't happened in New Cotton. I think that everyone has really see that there's the shared goal, and everyone has been really openly shared their knowledges, and that has been really pleasure. And of course we have quite exceptional industrial partners, I think, so that those ones that has been participated for New Cotton, so they are really this kind of advanced looking for sustainability transformation. They are really eager to try to influence even larger to this industrial field. So that has been really pleasure to follow up.
Great, thank you. Traci.
My role is, or Revolve's role, it has been, in the grand scheme, one of the smaller and more supporting roles in the project. So it's been, for us, a pleasure to try to understand some of the, for example, feedstock sourcing challenges, facilitate a little bit of communication, and then try to wrap that into useful documentation and reporting. So being able to facilitate a little bit on this material sourcing side has been absolutely a pleasure.
Well, thank you very much. We don't appear to have any questions in the chat, so
we have some in the Q&A.
Oh yes, here we go. Question here from Tony. Will the New Cotton be possible to recycle again as a new material? So obviously you've been looking at creating fibers, closing the loop. How many times can that loop be closed?
Yes, so yes, we can recycle in Finna. we still haven't finished tests of how many times it can be recycled. The idea we have is that it can be recycled as part of the cotton stream. So because it's a long way thinking that we would have like a pure infinite stream coming in from somewhere. So that's the idea right now, is that we would have it part of the cotton stream. And development of the future is understanding better how the recycling will, or how many cycles it can take, and what kind of process parameters we need for that. So right now we're kind of, our resources are tied to the production and the factory, but this is definitely something we need to look in. But technically, yes, recyclable.
Perhaps that's another EU funded project for the future.
Yeah.
Okay, we have another question here. Thank you for your interesting talks. How can ecosystem be built? I've got quite a few questions here. And what are the role of brands like H&M in the circular ecosystem? And do we expect more actions and commitments from the industrial partners? That's three questions in one.
Yes,
Thank you.
I can answer for that one. So I think it's really, really important that we have also big brands involved, because they bring in their reality. And of course, that very often is this kind of economical reality, as well as what the consumers are ready to accept. For example, in New Cotton case, Adidas has been collecting quite a lot of materials. They have done surveys in different countries. So they have collected consumers' viewpoint, for example, when New Cotton started. So they were studying consumers' understanding about recycled materials, what that actually means, and are consumers ready to accept recycled materials in their garments in different cultures. So I think that this is really also important, that they are bringing in the business reality. So in that sense, they have a really, really important knowledge role in New Cotton also. So I think that they have been really fantastic. It has been really fantastic that there has been a real brands also bringing their reality and discussing what is possible from their point of view.
Thank you very much, Kirsi. And last but not least, a question from Lena. So the social LCA sounds really interesting. My understanding is that one of the biggest hurdles to tackle in the fashion industry is educating the consumers on how their purchase behavior has a huge impact. What are your views? I think that could be anyone in the panel.
Yeah, maybe I can answer that from our point of view. So the social LCA is something quite new, and unfortunately we don't have the experts online to tell you more about that. But it is definitely challenging, because we need to be able to quantify the effects all along the value chain. But definitely something in the future. And then this educating consumers and citizens, that's really, really important, but it's also very tricky. Today's, like, the information flows, what's coming to people, how do they know what's really true and what's disinformation? What is greenwashing and what is not? Very, very difficult topic. I have hope in the next generation that they will kind of already from school. I know at least in Finland, they start learning things about circularity already in the first grade, and they kind of start thinking of these concepts in a completely different way. And I don't think they're that easy to trick with these greenwashing ideas. But maybe this is also something that will be affected by the European Union's directive on green claims. So that's something I'm hoping for.
That's very impressive. I know for a fact we're not teaching circularity in the first grade in the UK. There's a second part to that question. Oh, sorry. Were you going to say something, Traci, in response?
No problem. Just a little observation from my side, and that is that as the circular economy principles become more important throughout the public sector, municipalities are starting to become more interested in how do we do separate collection properly in line with the Waste Framework Directive? How do we communicate to citizens in a way that helps them understand what circular principles are? So I don't think anybody's cracked the code yet, but it's very encouraging to see municipalities, at least the front runners, start to really think about that and start to try things that touches every citizen in a municipality or in a region. And that's equally important, in my view, to a brand or a retailer trying to sell you something that's more sustainable or tell you how to buy. It really has to come from multiple levels.
Great, thank you very much, Tracy. There's a second part to that question, actually. So the social LCA sounds really interesting. And then have you at any stage through the project incorporated any aspect of new circular business models, such as rental?
No, we actually haven't done that kind of test. So yes, that hasn't been included in the new cotton.
Maybe something for the next project. And then we have one last question. I think we can quickly squeeze it in before we come to the end. So Tony, polycotton, thank you for your question, Tony. Polycotton with a high content of polyester is becoming increasingly usual in fast fashion. Yeah, it also mixes of recycled PET. So in fact, creating a monster. Like what are your feelings on this? I think what Tony's trying to ask is that, you know, we have all these mixed fabrics and fibers that perhaps a consumer think are also okay to consume. Do you think do you think we're just going to increasingly see mixed fibers in store, or do you think there's an end in sight?
I can grab this one. I agree with this problem. This is one of my favorite topics that I like to go on about, especially this recycled PET. Basically, right now, what we're doing by recycling PET is we're taking PET bottles out of a potentially circular plastic system. Those PET bottles should be recycled into PET bottles, not into textile fibers. And so we're transferring them from circular to linear chains again, because right now the technology to recycle polyester fibers back into fibers is still at very low technology stage. It's coming, but it's not there yet. And what really kind of annoys me is that this is where the green claims come in, that you have these big tags saying recycled materials, and consumers are they're trying to do their best, and they're trying to purchase things that are recycled, and they're buying these PET things. But my hope is now, especially when it comes to these mixes and blends, of that the EU will tackle this issue, and also we're hoping for this recycled content demand to come in. But the problem also lies in the fact that there's not enough recycled fibers on the market if we don't take these PET fibers in, which are sort of considered as recycled fibers. So even if brands were to want to put 10% of chemically recycled fibers into all their garments, they just don't exist right now. Mm-hmm. So we're kind of in a struggle with these demands and things. But I think this is something that I'd really like to people to understand, that the PET recycling is not really circular.
It's not a positive.
Yeah.
Okay, well, look, thank you very much, Traci, Paula, and Kirsi. Really appreciate you giving up your time this evening. Fascinating to learn more about the New Cotton project. And I do hope you or other stakeholders within the project can join us again in a year's time as you reach the sort of final stage of this really exciting initiative. So thank you very much, all of you, and thank you to those that have attended today. Thank you. Bye-bye.